In this video, we will show you how to get to the valve and how to adjust the valve. First, we remove the bottom rail, either an Arca Swiss rail or a Picatinny rail, depending on the model we have. We loosen 2 screws on the grip, one in the front part by the pressure gauge. We remove the bottom cover. If we have a composite bottle, we first loosen the bottle to let the air out. The air has blown out. We can either remove the bottle completely, or we can leave it screwed on only from the edge. For us, it is better to remove the bottle. We remove the bottle and let the excess air out of the plenum. If we have a classic air tank, we have to let all the air out of the rifle completely. So the air is let out. We remove the entire stock. We loosen these 4 screws and remove the stock by lifting it up. Moving it back a little and lifting it up again. This way we have the entire stock completely removed. Next, we remove the trigger mechanism. We loosen the safety. We loosen the screw that locks the position of the safety. At this point, we are careful. There is a spring with a 3mm steel ball under the safety, so we cover the hole where the ball could fly out. We press the safety, cover this hole as well, and slowly remove the safety rod. At this point, we can tap out the ball and remove the spring. We have this point, we can loosen the trigger mechanism and remove it in one piece. We are careful not to let any of the pins fall out when turning the trigger mechanism. Next, we loosen the hammer spring adjuster. We can either loosen it like this, when the ball with the spring is securing us, or we loosen this screw. Just 2 or 3 turns. At that moment, the spring with the ball will be released and we will be able to loosen it more freely. So we remove it from the body of the rifle. Here we find the spring and the 3.5 mm steel ball. So, we only knock out the spring with the ball so that we do not lose it during further disassembly. At this moment, we take the cocking lever and find a position where we can see through the hole all the way down to the hammer, and we can move the hammer with our finger from below. We have to find the screw that guides the hammer and loosen that screw. So we find a position where we can see all the way down to the hammer. We put the screw exactly under the hole. We take a 2.5 mm Allen key, place it in the screw, and loosen the screw. We hold the hammer from below. When the screw is completely loose, just push the screw back a little with an Allen key, and the screw will fall out of the bottom of the body. It is a screw different from all the others. It has a smooth, reinforced head of the exact diameter. At this point, we can remove the hammer from the body. Next, we turn the rifle. We move the cocking lever to the rear position until we feel it touch the locking ball. At that moment, we stop and we can push on the pin, which will fall out of this large hole at that moment. We push, the pin will fall out. If we do not remove the pin, we will not be able to remove the valve from the body, because the pin will prevent it from passing through. We loosen the pressure gauge. There is a 10x1.5 NBR 70 ring under the pressure gauge. If we have the pressure gauge removed, we will knock out the pin that locks the valve position. We must have the air rifle completely without air. If we leave the pressure gauge with air in the body and forcefully knock out the pin, the valve will be released and the valve could shoot out of the body of the rifle. We put the pin and at this point we can either remove the cartridge and push the valve out from the front part, or we can also move the valve to valve rear part through the hole from the pressure gauge. We will take an Allen key. We will put the Allen key into the body at an angle to get to the rear part of the valve, and thus push the valve into the body. So if we see a valve here, we will only press the valve and the valve is removed from the main block. The standard valve opening size is set to 2 millimeters. It is set to this value because it saves air and still provides us with sufficient power for commonly available ammunition. If we want to shoot heavy slugs or achieve more power and speed, we need to open the valve. Conversely, if we want to reduce the power and shoot 16 joule, we need to close the valve. We would close it by tightening the back of the valve. We open it by loosening the back. First, we measure the valve to what it is currently set to. The standard length of the valve, if we do not press the needle, should be between 50.85 and 51 millimeters. Now we have a value of 50.95. If we press the valve, again not pressing it completely with force, only to the stop of the rubber ring, we see that the value is 48.9. So we only do 50.95 minus 48.9. And it turns out that the valve opens by 2 millimeters. If we want to open the valve more, we take a 3 millimeter Allen key and loosen the valve. At this point, the back part of the valve will start to peek out, thus changing the initial length. So we measure the size of the entire valve, which is 51.8 millimeters. We press the valve stem. The next value is 48.65. Here we take 51.8 minus 48.65, and the opening is about 3.2 millimeters. 3.2 millimeters is the maximum opening of the valve, and 3 millimeters is completely sufficient. The 3.2 mm is really the maximum opening, and we do not recommend to get over this value. Here we set the valve to 3 mm. It is possible to measure it from the front like this. I measure it better like this, and I subtract the values from each other. So I have the valve set to maximum opening. At this point, we will show you how to put the valve back and put the entire rifle back together. First, we will take the valve that we set to maximum opening. We will check if we have any damaged O-rings on the valve, and if the valve works properly, returns back, and does not rub anywhere. We will check if we have damaged anything. If one of the O-rings is damaged, we can replace it. It is a 10x1.5 NBR70 O-ring. If everything is fine, we can lubricate the O-rings with petroleum jelly before inserting the valve into the weapon. So we lightly lubricate the rings. We can also apply a little around the rings. It is important to be careful not to get any dirt on the valve or into the body of the rifle. Dirt could damage the valve seat and the rifle would stop sealing and we would experience air leaks. The only O-ring that affects the air leakage from the cartridge is the one closer to the back of the valve. The second one only affects the air not passing into the weapon system when we shoot. So we take the valve. We direct the groove on the valve upwards. It is the groove that must fit this hole on the body, and is for this pin to secure the valve. So we take the valve with the hole and groove facing upwards. Insert it into the body. Carefully slide the O-rings over the thread, and with a rod or an Allen key we push the valve all the way to the back. It is better to push somewhere around the valve stem than directly on the stem. We are careful not to damage the O-rings when inserting the valve. We can use a smaller Allen key to help align the groove on the valve so that we can insert the pin better. And we insert the pin that will secure the valve in the given position. We turn the rifle. Take a 10x1.5 NBR70 O-ring. We can again lubricate it a little bit. We check whether the O-ring or the groove is dirty so that there is no air leaking. We put the O-ring back and screw in the pressure gauge. We tighten the pressure gauge all the way. So we have the pressure gauge installed. At this point, we take the pin with the O-ring, which pulls the hammer to the rear position. In the package, or in the accessories for the rifle, we have an M3X50 screw. So again, we grab the pin by one or two threads, find a hole on the stem, move the stem to find a hole for the pin, and insert the pin. If we can't push the pin straight down, We bend it a little so that it fits all the way down, loosen the screw, and we can move the lever into the front position. We take a hammer. Insert the hammer into the body so that the hole for the screw is pointing upwards again, and insert it like this. We check again that we are not inserting the hammer dirty. We must again point the hole for the screw opposite the large hole on the main body, where we will insert the guide screw. So we find a position where we can see into the groove for the hammer again. We insert the hammer. Find a hole for the screw on the hammer. We take a 2.5 mm Allen key and screw that has a turned head. The diameter of the screw head is 4.97 mm Allen. It is a good idea to dip the end of the Allen key in Vaseline. And put the screw on the Allen key. And put the screw will hold and will not fall off when we put it on the hammer. We hold the lever, align it, hold the hammer and insert the Allen key with the screw into the hole and grab the screw on the hammer. Tighten it with feeling. We don't have to use a lot of force, just so that the screw doesn't come loose. Once the screw is tightened, we try it from the other side. Make sure the hammer moves freely and doesn't rub. If we have it installed like this, we can install the hammer spring adjuster. So we take the short spring that we removed from the body. Either by hand or with tweezers, we insert it into the hole for the ball. We put a steel ball with a diameter of 3.5 mm on the spring and screw it in. We turn the body of the rifle and tighten the screw that we previously loosened. It is a good idea to take the screw out. Apply a drop of blue Lactic glue. We tighten the screw lightly. We do not tighten it with great force. It is enough to secure it lightly. Let the Loctite dry so that we do not loosen the screw when reloading. We turn the body and insert the trigger mechanism. We check that we have all the pins in the position. And we insert the trigger mechanism into the rifle, not cocked, but discharged, so we knock it off. Turn it, insert it into the body of the rifle, and secure the screws. One part of the safety. Insert it when the part starts to appear in this hole, and do not move the part further. We put the rod there beforehand so that when we put the spring and the ball in place, it doesn't fall into the trigger mechanism or fall out. First, we put the spring in. Plug the hole on this side with our thumb so that it doesn't fall out. Then we let the 3.5 mm steel ball in. We push the ball with the spring with an Allen key, press on the safety rod, and remove the Allen key. It will snap in place, and the safety will click and position itself. We secure it with a screw. The screw is used to prevent the safety from turning around. We tighten the screw until it stops and loosen it by 1/4 of a turn. The screw shouldn't stick out at all, so that we don't squeeze it with the stock or push the screw into the stock. Then we can screw on the second part of the safety. So, we test whether the safety works. We can take the stock to install it back. We put the stock on by inserting it from top to bottom, forward and down. We can tighten the screws. So, before we put on the grip and the bottom rail, we put the bottle on the rifle. We tighten the bleed-in screw so that there is no leakage. Looking at the rifle from the side, we align the block so that it is in the same plane or parallel to the body of the rifle. And at the same time, we try to push it away with our fingers like this, because we always want the bottle not to touch the barrel. We need to keep the block in the correct position, so we align everything, take the bottle and screw the bottle onto the block. So, we have filled it with air. We can fully tighten the bottle. At this point, we see that we have the bottle nicely straight from the barrel, so we can put the remaining parts on. We put on the bottom rail. And lastly, we put on the grip. This way, we have the rifle completely assembled again, and we can test whether everything works. We try to shoot in a safe direction. This way, the gun is completely assembled with the valve set to 3mm and ready for your full power shooting. Thank you for watching, and we wish you an epic shooting experience. See you in the next video.